My name is Anya Sharma. I'm 32 years old, and for the last decade, I've been the silent, steady hand managing my family's finances. It's a role I never officially applied for, but one that settled upon my shoulders as naturally as my affinity for the quiet logic of numbers. I come from a family that, to the outside world, looks like a portrait of New England's success. My parents, Camila and Rajesh Sharma, built their legacy in boutique hotel development, crafting charming, upscale inns from historic properties. We lived in a sprawling, ivy-covered home in Brookline, a place of polished hardwood floors and hushed, inherited wealth. But beneath the patina of old money and tasteful elegance, our family dynamics were a tangled knot of unspoken rules and quiet dismissals. My older brother, Rohan, was the golden child, a brilliant cardiac surgeon whose achievements were the constant, gleaming centerpiece of every family gathering. My sister, Priya, 2 years my junior, became a corporate attorney, sharp and ambitious, mirroring my mother's social prowess. I was the quiet one, the one who found solace in spreadsheets and market trends. I pursued a degree in economics and finance, graduating with honors from the University of Chicago, and built a successful career as a portfolio manager at a respected firm in Boston. Ironically, my quiet competence with money made me indispensable to the very people who saw me as little more than a background character in their own grand narratives. The first significant purchase I ever made was with the inheritance from my grandmother, Leela. She was my sanctuary, the one person whose eyes saw past the numbers and into the heart of the girl who loved them. She left me a considerable sum with a simple, handwritten note. Use this to build a place of peace, for yourself first, and then for others if you wish. The family had always spoken wistfully of a retreat in the Berkshires, a place to escape the city. So I found it, a beautiful cedar-sided cottage nestled on the shore of a quiet lake, with 3 bedrooms, a stone fireplace, and a long, weathered dock that stretched out into the water. I put the deed solely in my name, a decision I told myself was for liability reasons, though a deeper, unacknowledged part of me knew it was a desperate attempt to own something they couldn't take away. Still, I opened its doors to them freely. When my parents began to complain about the hassle of managing their various accounts and credit cards, I stepped in. I consolidated their finances, established a family-shared credit line under my own excellent standing with the bank, and negotiated terms that saved them thousands annually. I became the administrator of their financial lives, tracking expenses, paying bills, and ensuring a seamless flow of funds for their comfortable lifestyle. Yet, despite all this, I remained an afterthought. At the annual family meeting to discuss their investment strategy, my meticulously researched suggestions were often met with a placid, "That's an interesting thought, dear," only to be reproposed by my father minutes later and lauded as brilliant. When they decided to renovate the main house, I wasn't consulted on the design or the budget, only called upon when they needed the funds released. There was the Christmas they forgot my gift, resulting in a hastily retrieved bottle of generic red wine from the cellar, while Rohan received a vintage Rolex and Priya a first-edition signed novel from her favorite author. Or the time my mother rescheduled our traditional Sunday dinner for a minor social engagement of Priya's, yet refused to shift it when I had a crucial presentation for a new, high-profile client. My professional successes were met with polite but faint praise. When I was promoted to senior vice president at my firm, managing a portfolio worth billions, my mother's response was, "How nice for you, Anya. Did you hear Rohan was just published in the New England Journal of Medicine?" To their friends, I wasn't a senior VP at a prestigious firm, I simply worked at a bank. Priya, ever my mother's echo, would casually dismiss my financial advice while simultaneously emailing me her portfolio for a quick look over. Rohan, preoccupied with his own brilliance, barely acknowledged my professional expertise, but had no issue relying on the substantial growth of the savings I managed for him. Even my younger cousin, Sonia, who lived in my parents' guest house rent-free, an arrangement I had facilitated, had absorbed the family ethos and would make subtle jokes about me being the family accountant. Only my Aunt Anjali, my father's brother's wife, occasionally offered a glimmer of support. As an outsider who had married into the Sharma dynasty, She understood the subtle chill of their exclusivity. But even she, a gentle soul, would fall silent during the worst of it, unwilling to risk Camilla's displeasure. I tried everything to earn a place at the center of their world, or at least to be seen as an equal part of it. I hosted elaborate dinner parties in my Back Bay condo, only to have them critique my choice of caterer. I created personalized investment plans that significantly grew their wealth, for which they credited a good market. I bought thoughtful, personal gifts, planned surprise anniversary parties, and bent my schedule to their whims. Nothing worked. I was the family utility, useful, necessary, but ultimately an appliance. Each dismissal was a small paper cut to the soul, but I held on to the fragile hope that one day they would see me. That hope was what kept me showing up, smiling, and managing their lives, until one sun-drenched Sunday in May, when that hope was finally, irrevocably extinguished. The Sunday brunches were my mother's institution. Family must make time for one another, she'd declare, though the gatherings felt more like a summons than a celebration. Still, every month, I would arrive at my parents' Brookline home with a box of pastries from a small French patisserie near my condo, armed with a determined optimism that this time would be different. That particular Sunday seemed promising. The late spring air was warm and smelled of blooming wisteria and freshly cut grass. My mother had set the table on the bluestone patio, overlooking the manicured gardens. Everyone was in high spirits. "Anya, you're here," my mother said, offering me a cool, perfumed cheek. She smelled of Joe Malone and mimosas. We were just starting to discuss our summer plans. I placed the patisserie box on the sideboard. "I brought those lemon ricotta tarts everyone likes." "How thoughtful," she said, her attention already drifting back to the table where Rohan was holding court, recounting a recent medical conference in Switzerland. It had apparently sparked an idea for a grand family vacation. I took my usual seat between my Uncle Vikram and my cousin Sonia, pouring myself coffee from the sterling silver carafe. Rohan was detailing an elaborate European itinerary. "We could spend a week near Geneva," my mother said, her eyes alight, "and then, Rajesh, we could take the train down to Lake Como. Remember that lovely little village we found on our honeymoon?" I sipped my coffee, a silent observer as they wove together a tapestry of five-star hotels and Michelin-starred restaurants. No one looked my way. No one asked about my schedule. I finally cleared my throat. "That sounds wonderful. When in August is the conference?" I should probably check my calendar. The lively chatter ceased. A sudden, heavy silence fell over the patio. My mother's perfectly sculpted eyebrows rose in a delicate arch of surprise. "Oh, Anya," she said, a small, tinkling laugh in her voice. "We hadn't. Well, this is really a trip for the core family." I felt a familiar heat creep up my neck. "I am family," I said, my voice quieter than I intended. My Uncle Vikram let out a small snort, quickly disguised as a cough. Priya suddenly found the pattern on her butter knife fascinating. Rohan looked vaguely uncomfortable but said nothing. "Of course you are, technically," my mother continued, her tone shifting to one of patient explanation, as if to a child. "But this trip is really to celebrate Rohan's accomplishment. Besides, we'll be using the family's lease jet, and space is quite limited." The family jet. The jet I had recommended they lease instead of purchasing outright, a move that saved them a fortune in maintenance and depreciation. The jet whose financing I had personally structured and negotiated. "I see," I said, my voice carefully level. "I just thought, since I manage the accounts that fund these kinds of trips, I might be included in the planning." My mother's smile tightened at the edges. She placed her linen napkin beside her plate with a deliberate, final gesture, a warning sign I knew from childhood. "Anya, let's be honest, shall we? We are just trying to be nice by including you in these brunches and the occasional holiday. Don't think that you actually matter to the real decision-making in this family." The words, though spoken softly, landed with the force of a physical blow. A cold dread pooled in my stomach, spreading through my limbs. Around the table, a tableau of complicity played out. Uncle Vikram laughed, this time without pretense. Priya looked down at her lap. My father, my own father, stared intently at his plate of eggs Benedict, refusing to meet my gaze, refusing to offer a single word in my defense. Camilla, That's a bit harsh, Aunt Anjali murmured, but her voice was faint, lost in the chirping of the birds. Mom, come on, Rohan started, but he trailed off when my mother shot him a silencing look. What? She said, her voice laced with defensive indignation. We all know Anya is simply better with the numbers. She's not exactly the fun one, is she? I'm merely being honest. I sat perfectly still, a lifetime of practice allowing me to maintain a placid mask while my world fractured behind it. The conversation around me resumed, shifting seamlessly to potential villa rentals in Lake Como, as if the casual annihilation of my place in the family had been nothing more than a momentary pause. With a steadiness that felt alien to me, I reached for my coffee cup. I took one small sip of the now tepid liquid. I placed it gently back on its saucer. I folded my napkin, set it on the table, and rose. I've just remembered an appointment, I said to the air in front of me. Enjoy your brunch. No one tried to stop me. My father gave a distracted wave without looking up. My mother was already showing Priya pictures of waterfront properties on her phone. The 20-minute drive back to my condo was a blur. I navigated the familiar streets on autopilot, the soft jazz on the radio a surreal counterpoint to the screaming silence in my head. My hands gripped the steering wheel so hard my knuckles were white. It wasn't until I closed the heavy oak door of my apartment behind me that the mask finally shattered. I slid down the door, my back pressed against the wood, and I sobbed. Not the delicate, contained tears my mother would have deemed acceptable, but wrenching, body-shaking sobs that tore from my chest, leaving me breathless. My cat, a sleek black creature named Leo, patted over cautiously and pressed his warm body against my leg, a silent, furry anchor in the storm. They don't want me, I whispered to him, my hand stroking his soft fur. They never have. The truth I had spent my entire adult life trying to outrun had finally cornered me. The family I had so desperately tried to serve, to please, to belong to, saw me as nothing more than a tool. My expertise was valuable, I was not. My services were essential, my presence was a courtesy. I was the family calculator, to be used and put away, appreciated for function, not for essence. As the afternoon light slanted across my living room floor, I remained there, emptying myself of years of suppressed hurt. And when the tears finally subsided, I felt hollowed out, but also strangely light. The cruel precision of my mother's words had stripped away the last of my illusions. Something inside me had irrevocably shifted. I was done. I was done trying to earn a love that would never be freely given. The following morning, I called in sick to work for the first time in my career. I needed a day of absolute quiet to think, to plan. I brewed a strong pot of coffee, settled at my dining room table with Leo purring in my lap, and opened my laptop. First, I conducted a thorough review of my personal finances. My own portfolio, separate from the family's, was robust and well-diversified. I had always been cautious with my own money, building a substantial nest egg that could support me for years, if not indefinitely. Financial independence had always been my secret shield in a family that made me feel perpetually insecure. Then, I pulled up the deed and all related documents for the cottage in the Berkshires. I had purchased it 6 years ago with Grandma Leela's inheritance. Though everyone used it as if it were a communal property, the title was solely in my name. I had paid every cent of the property taxes, insurance, and maintenance from my personal accounts. Legally, unequivocally, it was mine. Next, the shared credit line. I had established it as a secondary line on my primary account, with my family members listed as authorized users. The legal liability rested entirely with me, though I had been faithfully using funds from their managed accounts to pay the balance each month. I downloaded the last 12 months of statements, a detailed record of their spending habits. Rohan's penchant for designer watches and lavish dinners. Priya's BMW payments and frequent spa days. My parents' charges for everything from groceries and cases of vintage wine to antique furniture for the main house. I created a spreadsheet, my fingers flying across the keyboard with a familiar, comforting efficiency. I detailed every single financial service I provided, managing their multi-million-dollar investment portfolio, preparing and filing their labyrinthine tax returns, negotiating their home and auto insurance policies. handling the property management for their 2 rental units in the city, coordinating with their estate attorney. I calculated the market rate for these services. It would cost them a minimum of 6 figures annually to hire professionals to do what I had been doing for free. By lunchtime, the picture was stark and irrefutable. My family didn't just benefit from my expertise, they were completely dependent on it. Their effortless lifestyle, their financial security, their precious European vacations, all of it rested on the foundation of my careful and consistently unacknowledged labor. The irony was a bitter pill. They dismissed the architect while living comfortably inside the house she had built. I took a break and called my best friend, Maya, a sharp-witted corporate lawyer I'd met in a business ethics class at U Chicago. She was one of the few people who knew the full extent of my family's dynamics. She said, "What?" Maya's voice was incredulous after I recounted the brunch. "Anya, that's not just disrespectful. That's emotional cruelty, plain and simple." "I know," I said, my voice heavy. "I think I've always known, but I didn't want to see it." "So, what are you going to do?" I took a breath, voicing the idea that had been crystallizing in my mind all morning. "I'm going to untangle myself. Completely." "Good," she said, her voice firm with support. "It's about damn time. What do you need from me? Can you look over a few documents? I want to make sure every T is crossed and every I is dotted." "Send them over," she said. "And Anya? You deserve so much better than this. You always have." After we hung up, I began to draft my plan. Step 1. Contact a top real estate agent in the Berkshires to list the cottage for sale, effective immediately. Step 2. Close the shared credit line after giving a brief but formal notice. Step 3. Begin the process of transferring management of the family's investment portfolio to my colleague, Ben, with a 1-month transition period where I would document everything meticulously. Then there were the subscriptions. Over the years, to simplify things, I had put dozens of recurring family expenses on my personal credit cards, reimbursing myself from their accounts. Netflix, Hulu, Spotify Premium for the whole family. The Wine of the Month Club my father loved. Rohan's exclusive gym membership. Priya's meal delivery service. All of them would be canceled or transferred. I spent the rest of the afternoon making calls and sending emails, setting each piece of my plan into motion. Every action was precise, professional, and legally sound. I wasn't taking a dime that wasn't mine. I wasn't refusing to return what was theirs. I was simply, quietly, removing myself from the equation. With each confirmation email that landed in my inbox, I felt a subtle shift inside me. The young woman who had spent a lifetime trying to please was being replaced by a woman who was finally beginning to understand her own worth, independent of their validation. The hurt was still there, a deep, tender bruise on my heart, but alongside it, a new feeling was taking root, self-respect. That evening, I called my Aunt Anjali. While she rarely stood up to my mother, she had always shown me a quiet kindness that I felt deserved a warning. "I've decided to make some changes in light of what happened at brunch," I explained, after the initial pleasantries. "Oh, darling, your mother. She doesn't always mean things the way they sound," she said, immediately defaulting to the family script of excusing Camila's behavior. "She meant exactly what she said, Aunt Anjali," I replied gently. "And it's okay. It helped me see things I needed to see." "What kind of changes?" she asked, her voice cautious. "I'm disentangling myself financially from the family. It won't affect you directly, but you'll probably hear things. I just wanted you to know it's not being done out of anger or spite." There was a long silence on the line. When she finally spoke, her voice was softer. "I understand more than you think, Anya. You do what you need to do for yourself." As I got ready for bed that night, a flicker of doubt surfaced. Was this too drastic? Was I burning a bridge I could never rebuild? But then I saw my mother's dismissive face, heard my uncle's laugh, pictured my father's averted eyes. The pattern would never change unless I broke it. I set my phone to do not disturb, curled up in bed with Leo, and for the first time in years, I slept a deep, dreamless sleep. The decision was made. The plan was in motion. There was no turning back. The real estate market in the Berkshires was hotter than I'd anticipated. My agent, a briskly efficient woman named Isabel, called me just 3 days after I'd signed the listing agreement. I have multiple offers, Anya, she said, her voice crackling with excitement. One couple is particularly motivated. They're local. They've been looking for a lakefront property for months, and they're offering $20,000 over asking, all cash, with a 2-week close. I sat at my desk, looking out at the Boston Harbor. They understand the cottage is being sold fully furnished, as is? Yes, that's a major part of the appeal for them. They want a turnkey vacation home they can use for the 4th of July. The cottage. The place my family thought of as theirs. The place where Rohan was planning to take his kids in August, where my father claimed to do his best thinking. In a few short weeks, it would belong to strangers. A pang of something guilt, maybe, or loss, twisted in my gut. It was quickly followed by the echo of my mother's voice. Don't think you matter. Let's accept the offer, I said, my voice firm. Send me the paperwork. After the call, I went in my kitchen and poured a glass of wine. This was real. The first major piece of my old life was being dismantled. Part of me had expected to feel a sense of triumph, but instead, there was just a complex, quiet mix of sadness and relief. I wasn't enjoying this. I was simply refusing to be hurt anymore. The next day, I went to my bank to close the shared credit line. The branch manager, a kind man named Mr. Chin who had known me for years, greeted me warmly. What can we do for you today, Ms. Sharma? I need to close the family shared credit line, I said, sliding the account information across his polished desk. His eyebrows rose. The entire line? This is a substantial account. Yes, the entire line. I've already moved any recurring legitimate business expenses to my father's primary account. I'd like to give the authorized users 48 hours notice before the accounts are fully deactivated. Of course, he said, his professionalism masking his obvious curiosity. We'll send out the formal notifications immediately. May I ask if there was a problem with our service? I gave him a small, polite smile. No problem at all with the bank, Mr. Chen. Just a change in family arrangements. He nodded, processing the paperwork. I signed where indicated. Another piece dismantled. Back in my office, I composed a series of precise, dispassionate emails. To Netflix, Hulu, and HBO. To the Wine of the Month Club, the Whiskey Connoisseurs Society, the Artisanal Cheese Delivery Service. To Priya's Meal Kit Company and Rohan's Luxury Gym. To my mother's curated fashion box subscription and my father's rare book club. Each email requested immediate cancellation or provided instructions for transferring the account to a new payment method. The transfer of the investment portfolio was the most intricate part. I scheduled a meeting with my trusted colleague, Ben. I need to transfer the management of my family's portfolio, I explained, sliding the summary sheet across the table. He whistled softly, looking at the numbers. That's a significant portfolio, Anya. They've done exceptionally well under your management. May I ask why you're passing it off? Personal reasons, I said simply. But I'll ensure a seamless transition. I've prepared a comprehensive file with every holding, our long-term strategy, and detailed notes on my families, on the clients, risk tolerance, and preferences. Ben, ever the professional, just nodded. I'll take good care of them. Will you still be managing your personal investments with us? Absolutely, I confirmed. This change only affects the Sharma family accounts. I spent the next 2 days creating meticulous financial summaries for each family member. I detailed exactly what I had managed, what changes were being made, and what actions they would need to take. It was more than they deserved, but I was determined to be unimpeachable. This was not about revenge, it was about release. As I worked, the confirmations began to roll in. Emails from subscription services. A formal notice from the bank about the credit line closure. The e-signed purchase and sale agreement for the cottage from Isabel. With each notification, the new reality became more solid. After years of being the accommodating, ever-reliable financial bedrock of the family, I was finally, irrevocably, drawing a line. It was both terrifying and exhilarating. That Saturday evening, exactly 1 week after the brunch, I made myself a simple dinner, opened a bottle of Sancerre, and sat on my balcony with Leo. The late spring air was mild, and the city lights were just beginning to glitter against the deep blue of the twilight sky. For the first time in a long time, I felt a sense of peace, even knowing the storm that was about to break. As if on cue, my phone, which I'd left on the table inside, lit up. Then again. And again. The family group chat, usually quiet on a Saturday night, was suddenly erupting. I took a slow sip of wine, then went inside and picked up the phone. The reckoning had arrived. The first message in the family group chat was from Rohan. Did anyone else's gym membership get cancelled? They're saying the payment method was declined. Before anyone could reply, Priya chimed in, all my subscriptions are gone. Netflix, Hulu, even my meal delivery. What is going on? My father, usually silent in these chats, added, Camila's wine club delivery was refused today. Something about an invalid payment method. Then, my mother, the housekeeper, just called. Her direct deposit didn't go through. Anya, are you seeing this? There seems to be some sort of issue with the accounts. I watched the digital panic unfold, a silent observer. I took another sip of wine as their confusion quickly curdled into frustration, and then, dawning suspicion. Priya, wait a minute. Anya, did you cancel our subscriptions? Rohan, Anya, call me. Now. Something is wrong with the family credit line. I set my phone face down on the table and went back to my balcony, to my wine and my peaceful view. The real storm hadn't even hit them yet. 3, 2, 1. My phone began to ring. Mother. I let it go to voicemail. It rang again immediately. Father. Voicemail. The group chat notifications buzzed incessantly. I felt strangely detached, as if watching a play unfold from a distant seat. After the 5th call in 10 minutes, I picked up the phone and sent a simple text to the group. I have made some changes to the financial arrangements I have been managing. Nothing illegal or improper has occurred. I will be happy to explain everything next weekend. The response was instantaneous and explosive. Rohan, what changes? Why wasn't this discussed? Priya, you can't just unilaterally make decisions that affect all of us. Mother, Anya Leela Sharma, you will call me this instant. The irony was breathtaking. The woman whose opinion didn't matter to their decision-making was now being condemned for making her own. Suddenly, my input was not only required, it was demanded. I turned off the notifications for the group chat, put on some quiet jazz, and finished my wine. The real bombshell was still to come. Sunday morning brought the next wave. I was enjoying a leisurely breakfast when a call came from an unsaved number. I answered, and my Uncle Vikram's voice barked in my ear. Anya, what in God's name is going on with the cottage? Frank next door just called, said there's a young couple over there measuring the windows for drapes. Said they told him they just bought the place. I took a calm sip of my coffee. That's correct, Uncle Vikram. The sale closed on Friday. There was a moment of pure, sputtering shock on the other end of the line. You sold the family cottage? Without telling anyone? Have you lost your mind? It was my cottage, Uncle Vikram, I said, my voice even. Purchased with my inheritance. Titled solely in my name. I was perfectly within my rights to sell it. But that's the family retreat. Your parents were planning to spend all of July there. Rohan's kids love that place. Yes, I know everyone enjoyed using my property, I said pleasantly. Unfortunately, things change. This is unacceptable. Your mother is going to be furious. I imagine she will be, I agreed. Goodbye, Uncle Vikram. I ended the call and, with a sense of long overdue satisfaction, blocked his number. Within minutes, my phone began to buzz and chime relentlessly. Calls from my parents, Rohan, Priya, even distant cousins I hadn't spoken to in years. Text messages escalated from confused to accusatory. Emails demanding an immediate explanation flooded my inbox. I spent the day enjoying my newfound freedom. I went to the Isabella Stewart Gardner Museum, had a quiet lunch in the North End, and took a long walk along the Charles River Esplanade. My phone, tucked away in my purse, buzzed itself into a frenzy. By evening, the tone of the messages had started to shift. The angry demands slowly gave way to worried inquiries, which then morphed into grudging requests for a conversation. My mother's latest voicemail was a masterclass in manipulation. Anya, we haven't heard from you all day. We're getting worried. Please, just call us back so we can talk about whatever is bothering you. I had to smile. In my mother's world, my actions couldn't possibly be a rational response to her behavior. It had to be because something was bothering me. Monday morning brought the professional fallout. I received a carefully worded email from my colleague, Ben. Anya, I've been contacted by your father regarding the Sharma portfolio. He seems surprised by the transition and has expressed some concern about proceeding without a full family consultation. Given our firm's commitment to clear client communication, perhaps we could schedule a meeting to ensure everyone is aligned? I replied with equal professionalism. Then, as we discussed, I am the sole authorized manager on these accounts with full legal authority to direct their management. My father holds no official role in that capacity. Please proceed with the transition as planned. If you are uncomfortable doing so, I understand, but I will then need to move the accounts to another advisor who is. His response was immediate. No, of course not, Anya. We value your business. I will continue as instructed. Over the next few days, the family's tactics continued to evolve. There were texts offering to hear my side of the story, voicemails suggesting family counseling, an email from my father proposing a formal business meeting to restructure the family's financial governance in a way that better recognizes your contributions. By Wednesday, desperation was palpable. The real crisis hit when my father called from his office line, a number I still had saved. I answered. Anya, he said, his voice tight with an agitation I'd never heard before. The family credit cards are being declined. Everywhere. Your mother was at Neiman Marcus and had to leave her purchases at the counter. This has gone far enough. I closed the shared credit line, I confirmed, my voice steady. As the primary account holder, that was my right. But why? What possible reason could you have for causing this kind of disruption for the entire family? I took a deep breath. It was time. Do you remember last Sunday at brunch, Dad? When Mom said they were just being nice by including me, and that I shouldn't think I matter to the family's decisions. Do you remember what you said to defend me? A long, heavy silence stretched over the line. Nothing, I continued for him. You said nothing. You've never said anything. So I decided to take her at her word. If I don't matter, then my services shouldn't matter either. No more financial management. No more free cottage. No more shared expenses that I organize while being treated like a second-class citizen. Anya, you're overreacting. Your mother, she speaks hastily sometimes. This isn't about one comment, Dad. It's about a lifetime of being valued for what I provide, not for who I am. And I'm done with it. We need to discuss this. As a family. We will, I said. Sunday. Noon. My condo. I'll send a calendar invitation. And with that, I ended the call. That night, as I was getting ready for bed, one last text came through. It was from Aunt Anjali. I've heard about everything. For what it's worth, I think you are incredibly brave. Whatever happens on Sunday, remember that standing up for yourself is never, ever wrong. I smiled, a small, genuine smile. The stage was set. It was time to prepare. In the days leading up to the meeting, I prepared my home and myself as if for a strategic negotiation. I cleaned my already immaculate condo until it gleamed. I ordered pastries from the same French pâtisserie and arranged them on my grandmother Leela's silver tray, a silent statement of my own claim to the family legacy. I set up the seating in my living room so that I would be in a comfortable armchair, facing them as they sat together on the sofa. Mentally, I was just as methodical. I rehearsed my key points. On Friday, I had an emergency session with my therapist. Remember, Anya, Dr. Evelyn Reed told me, her voice calm and grounding, they will likely try to minimize your feelings, reframe the narrative, and possibly attack your character. Stay anchored to the specific behaviors and your new boundaries. This is not a negotiation, it is an announcement. What if they refuse to acknowledge any of it? I asked, a knot of anxiety tightening in my stomach. Then you will have your answer, she said gently. You cannot control their reaction. You can only control your own. Sunday arrived, a cool, overcast day. At precisely noon, my doorbell rang. I took one last, deep breath, smoothed the lines of my simple but elegant navy blue dress, and opened the door. They had arrived as a united front, my mother, my father, Rohan, and Priya. Even Uncle Vikram was there, looking sullen. Only Aunt Anjali stood slightly apart from the group, offering me a small, encouraging nod. "Please, come in," I said, my voice even as I stepped aside. They filed into my living room, their eyes taking in the scene, the coffee service, the artfully arranged pastries, the deliberate seating arrangement. "Well," my mother said, her gaze sweeping my condo with a look of faint disdain. "You've certainly gone to some trouble." "I believe this conversation deserves our full attention," I replied, gesturing toward the sofa. "Please, make yourselves comfortable." They settled themselves in their predictable formation, my parents in the center, Rohin next to my father, Priya beside my mother, Uncle Vikram on the end. I took my seat in the armchair opposite them, feeling the quiet power of being on my own turf. My father, assuming his role as family patriarch, cleared his throat. "Anya, we're here to discuss these alarming actions you've taken. Selling property, closing accounts." Before we discuss the actions, I interjected calmly, "We need to discuss the reasons for them." My mother sighed dramatically. "If this is about my little comment at brunch, I've already said I was being hasty." "This isn't about one comment," I said, my gaze steady. "It's about a pattern of behavior that has gone on for my entire life." "What pattern?" Rohin asked, a look of genuine confusion on his face. "You've always been part of everything." "Included, yes. Valued, no," I countered. "For 10 years, I have managed this family's wealth. I have built the systems that allow you all to live your lives without a single worry about bills or taxes or investments. And yet, when a major family decision is being made, like a trip to Europe, I am not even a consideration." "That's not fair," Priya protested. "The trip was about Rohin's conference. And it was a wonderful reason for a family trip," I agreed. "A trip for the whole family except me. Despite the fact that I managed the funds that would pay for it and arranged the lease on the jet you plan to use." An uncomfortable silence descended. "Anya," my father said, his voice taking on a reasonable, businesslike tone. "We all appreciate the work you do for the family. Perhaps we haven't been as vocal about it as we should have been. This isn't about applause, Dad. It's about respect. It's about being seen as an equal, not just a financial utility." "Of course you're an equal," my mother scoffed. "Don't be so dramatic." Uncle Vikram snorted. "Equal? Camila, you literally told her to her face that she doesn't matter." All heads swiveled toward him. Even he seemed surprised by his own outburst. "What?" he said defensively. "I'm just saying what I heard. I was there." My mother's face flushed a deep red. "I did not say that. I said, you said you were just being nice by including me, and that I shouldn't think I matter to the real decision-making." I finished for her, my voice quiet, but clear. "And the rest of you, Dad, you stared at your plate. Rohin, you looked away. Priya, you said nothing. You were all complicit in your silence." "You're taking it out of context," my mother insisted. "The context is my entire life," I replied. "The context is being praised for my function, but dismissed as a person. The context is watching Rohin and Priya be celebrated while I am tolerated. The context is my own father never, not once, standing up for me." My father shifted in his seat, the first crack in his composed facade. "Family dynamics are complex, Sonia," he began. "They are," I agreed. "Which is why I have simplified mine. The cottage was legally mine, so I sold it. The credit line was in my name, so I closed it. The subscriptions were on my cards, so I canceled them. And the portfolio I have managed for a decade is being transferred to a professional who you can pay for his services." "But why punish all of us?" Priya demanded. "This isn't punishment. It's a boundary," I stated clearly. "I am no longer willing to provide my professional expertise to people who do not respect me as a human being." "So this is about money?" Rohin asked, incredulous. "You're holding the family finances hostage because your feelings got hurt?" I looked directly at him. "No, Rohin. This is about me finally recognizing that I deserve the same baseline of respect that you are all afforded without question. And since it was not being given freely, I have been forced to create the conditions under which it might grow." "So, what is it you want?" my father asked, the pragmatist. "An apology? A bigger title? What will it take to put things back the way they were?" The question laid it all bare. "Not How can we fix our relationship? But how can we get our free financial services back? I don't want anything, I said. I'm not here to negotiate. I'm here to inform you of the new reality and to help you navigate it. I stood and retrieved a stack of 5 thick, neatly labeled folders from my desk. I handed one to each of them. In these folders, you will find a complete and final summary of all the accounts I managed for you, a list of all recurring payments you will now need to handle, and my professional recommendations for next steps, including the contact information for several excellent wealth management firms. I have made the transition as seamless as possible. My mother let her folder slide onto the coffee table unopened. This is absurd. We're family. Family doesn't keep score. You're right, I said. Families are supposed to support each other out of love, not transaction. They are supposed to value each other as people, not assets. They are supposed to defend one another. I spent years trying to earn my place in this family. I bought a cottage to create shared memories. I managed your finances to earn your respect. I am done trying to earn what should be a birthright. So you're just cutting us off? Rohan asked, and for the first time, I heard a note of genuine loss in his voice. No, I said gently. I'm establishing the terms of my engagement. I will no longer be your financial manager. I will attend family events when I feel I am wanted for my company, not for my utility. I will be a daughter and a sister, not an employee. And how are we supposed to know the difference? My mother asked, her voice dripping with sarcasm. It's simple, Mom, I said, my voice softening. You invite me because you miss me. You ask my opinion because you value it. You stand up for me, even when it's hard. You treat me like I matter. My father, the businessman, looked down at his folder, then back at me, the gears turning in his head. And if we do these things? Then perhaps, I said, we can start to build a real family. One based on mutual respect. Aunt Anjali, silent until now, finally spoke. I think what Anya is asking for is the bare minimum. And I think we all owe her an apology. My mother shot her a look that could curdle milk, but for once, she said nothing. They left shortly after, a cloud of stunned silence hanging over them. As they filed out, my father paused at the door. I should have spoken up, he said, his voice low, not quite meeting my eyes. At brunch. And many, many times before that. I'm sorry, Anya. It was the first crack of genuine light. Thank you, Dad. I don't know if things can go back to the way they were, he said. They can't, I replied softly. But maybe they can become something better. He nodded, a thoughtful, somber look on his face, and followed the others out. As I closed the door, a wave of profound exhaustion washed over me, followed by a quiet, deep sense of peace. I had not screamed or cried or accused. I had simply stated my truth and reclaimed my power. Whatever came next, that victory was mine alone. The months that followed were a quiet unfolding. My mother maintained a frosty distance, communicating only through my father. Rohan and Priya sent sporadic, awkward texts, usually circling back to some logistical question about their new financial advisors. It was my father who, surprisingly, made the most consistent effort. He called me once a week, and we'd have stilted, but respectful, conversations about the stock market or a book he was reading. I was thinking about that model of the solar system we built for your 6th grade science fair, he said one evening. You stayed up half the night recalculating the distances to make sure they were to scale. You stayed up with me, I reminded him. You could have just told me to go to bed. You always had a head for the details, he said, and I could hear a faint smile in his voice. I was proud of you then. It was a small thing, but it felt like a tiny seed being planted in long barren soil. Aunt Anjali and I started having lunch regularly, our bond solidifying into a true friendship. You've changed the whole ecosystem, you know, she told me over salads one afternoon. Rajesh is different. More reflective. He told Vikram the other day that his greatest failure as a father was letting Camila's pride overshadow his love for his daughter. The news sent a quiet shock through me. He'd said that? Freed from the unpaid, emotional labor of managing my family, I found I had an abundance of time and energy. I took up pottery, the feeling of shaping clay with my own hands a grounding, tangible act of creation. I joined a hiking club and spent weekends exploring the White Mountains, breathing in the crisp, clean air. I began to build a life that was rich and full on its own terms, populated by friends like Maya and Ben who saw and valued me for exactly who I was. 6 months after our confrontation, my mother sent a text. Your father's 70th birthday dinner is next Saturday. The Capitol Grill. 7 p.m. We would like you to be there. It was a simple invitation, devoid of manipulation or demand. I went, armed with my new boundaries and managed expectations. The evening was surprisingly pleasant. My mother was civil, even asking about my pottery class. Rohan talked about his kids, and Priya about a case she'd won, and for the first time, it felt less like a competition and more like a conversation. The real shift came nearly a year after that fateful brunch. Rohan's wife, Nina, gave birth to their second child, a daughter named Leela, after our grandmother. When I went to the hospital, Rohan pulled me aside. Nina and I were talking, he said, looking at me with an uncharacteristic seriousness. We were hoping you would be Leela's godmother. I was stunned into silence. We want her to have a role model in her life who is strong and principled and knows her own worth, Nina added from the bed, her voice tired but warm. That's you, Anya. Tears pricked my eyes. It wasn't about being useful, it was about being valued for my character. I'd be honored, I whispered. My life now is quieter, but deeper. The grand family trips and lavish gifts are gone, but in their place are small, authentic moments of connection. My father and I have started taking walks on Sunday mornings. Aunt Anjali is my closest confidant. My relationship with my siblings is a slow work in progress, but it's a foundation we're building on new, more honest ground. My mother and I may never have the warm relationship I once craved, but we have found a place of careful, quiet respect. I learned that sometimes, the most loving thing you can do for your family is to teach them how to treat you. I had to sell the cottage in the Berkshires to build a true place of peace within myself. True family isn't about blood or obligation. It's about respect, freely given. It's about showing up for each other not because it's convenient, but because your presence truly matters. If you've ever struggled with family members who undervalue you, please know that establishing boundaries isn't an act of aggression, it's an act of self-preservation. Have you ever had to stand up for your own well-being within your family? I would be moved to hear your experience in the comments below. And if this story resonated with you, please hit that like button and subscribe for more stories about finding our strength. Thank you for listening to my journey. And remember, you matter. Exactly as you are.